And we're back in the car like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Saturday afternoon here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. Well, I flexed the right arm. A little bit of an update for you all. I am now more than 13 weeks past the rupture of the right bicep tendon. I got a nice gap down here in the crook of the elbow that did not exist 14 weeks ago, but alas, it was on its way to happening. I knew it. I tried to take care and take heed and be cautious. And I was, insofar as when I was working out, I was very careful not to aggravate an area that I knew was going to go. It was just a matter of when and not if. But alas, life happens. And while attempting to change a tire and pull the spare out of the trunk, the right bicep tendon snapped like a rubber band. It kind of sounded like it. It's a little scary thinking about it. It wasn't scary when it happened. I was in shock. It felt like somebody slapped my arm. And then I heard this really terrible snapping sound and it was gone. So I am, to some extent, still rehabbing the arm, but in large part, the rehab it's not that it's over, because you're always going to continue to work out an area, whether it's injured, whether you're recovering, or whether you're just trying to maintain or even build, let's say, on a weak point. There is the slightest bit of residual soreness from the point of the tear. It kind of tore here, this part. And in certain, if I stand a certain way, it almost looks like you can see where the tear happened. You can see where the tendon was supposed to attach. Well, not was supposed to attach. You can see where the tendon did attach. Supposing's got nothing to do. Supposing you're wrong. Supposing this whole building falls down. From the point of the tear, there is the slightest bit of residual soreness. But other than that, pain-wise, I'm pretty much back to normal. Not pretty much. I'm back to normal as far as I have no restrictions, while working out. I can do what I like. Not quite back to using the same weights, but the irony is, doing, for example, flat bench presses with dumbbells. I don't have a barbell in my home gym, and I had stopped using barbells for years. I feel like the last time I did barbell bench press consistently got to be 15 years ago. I started using dumbbells almost exclusively. Better range of motion, better neuromuscular efficiency, better hit, all that kind of stuff, and safer, because at least in theory, if you assume that you're not going to have a rupture of a tendon, if you can't make a weight with a dumbbell, you dump the weight. It's not that easy to dump a barbell when you're doing bench presses. So dumbbells, by that logic, they are a lot better if you are going to be flying solo and training by yourself. Now, ideally, you would have a spotter anyway, but relatively speaking, you are less likely to, let's say, drop a dumbbell on your head than drop a bar onto your chest that is loaded to 200 something pounds. You could injure your sternum. There's a lot of bad things. There's a higher percentage of bad things that can happen if you're using a barbell for that particular exercise. And as far as using a barbell for shoulder presses, I would recommend not do that. I don't think that exercise is safe when performed in that way. When I was in the kind of early years, the press behind neck was still thought of as a good exercise. Continued research and looks into kinesiology and physiology, that's an exercise that is less likely to be recommended now than, let's say, 3+ decades ago. So when I mentioned a little bit of irony, maybe irony is not the right word, I would say a surprise. So before I tore this, the reason why I had changed my workouts, and when I say change, I'm not talking about anything drastic. I didn't start using a weird incline or decline or anything like that. I simply lowered the weight. And the reason why I lowered the weight for, dumbbell benches is because I felt tension right here, right where it ended up tearing. Now, it didn't hurt. I wasn't training through pain and showing, oh, he's a tough guy. No, it wasn't pain. But it was tightness. It was enough tightness that the alarm bells went off, and I said, well, the tendon's going. And I started telling people, say, I think my right bicep tendon I think it's hanging by a thread. Well, how do you know? Well, I mean, I haven't gotten an MRI, but based on my understanding of a lot of different things I've read in the last 30 some years, I think it's going, and it makes sense. I had long stretches where I pretty much abused every tendon and ligament, more so than the muscles themselves. I did a lot of real wacky daredevil stuff. I trained in my 20s and 30s as if I was going to, stop me if you've heard this before, as if I was going to live forever, as if I had unlimited recovery ability, which also, spoiler alert, not only I don't have, but you don't have, nobody has unlimited recovery ability, whether it's just training the muscles or whether it is overstressing the tendons, joints, and ligaments. So I lowered the weight rather than saying, well, I'm just going to keep getting 30 reps with 50-pound dumbbells and maybe we'll try to push how many can we get now with 55 or with 60. I'm not even going to do that. Let's lower the weight down to 40 and see what it feels like. So this is a week or so before the injury. I'm doing 40-pound dumbbells for more or less flat bench presses, and I'm not feeling the tightness. Lowering the weight an additional, that would be 20%. It made a difference. Now, if you'd ask me the question, okay, let's say hypothetically, you'd never have any further problems with your right bicep tendon, because the thing is, I never felt like I was going to tear anything doing any other exercise. I didn't feel the same strain doing shoulder presses, and oddly enough, doing biceps and triceps seemed fine. There was nothing to indicate the issue was anything other than I feel it when I do benches, so let's do them differently. Now, the tendon was going. The tendon was going to go. But I feel like it was always going to go with me doing bench presses or doing some other outside activity like attempting to take a spare tire out of the trunk. So doing 40s for 30, 35, 40 reps, no problem. So now, 13 plus weeks after I almost want to call it an accident, but it was more of a 1 + 1 = 2. After the 1 + 1 = 2 of tearing a tendon that was at the end of its rope, almost literally. I am very close to being able to get 25 good reps on the bench with 55-pound dumbbells. Now, this is more weight than I was using when I was feeling the tightness and the stiffness in the arm, which indicated that I was about to get hurt. So, again, this is cockeyed thinking, because out of context, well, that doesn't make any sense. But unfortunately, the tendon itself was holding me back. There was nothing wrong with, for example, knock on wood, my shoulder, my right tricep. There was nothing wrong with my performance of the exercise itself. My form is pretty good. So my strength on that exercise is now above what it was before the injury, simply because the tendon was holding me back. Now, when I do benches these days, and if some of you have seen it occasionally, I post it to the channel here. I don't do benches with the bench completely flat. Not because I don't believe in doing flat benches, because there was an idea, and I remember years and years ago when Dorian Yates, former was it 7-time Mr. Olympia, I think he won from 92 through 97. Maybe he only won 6. I think he won 6. Anyway, it's not that important whether he won 6 or 7. But Dorian Yates, he'd had some very heavy injuries, and we know this. He tore his bicep. I think he tore his left bicep. Left or right, I don't even remember. It was at Bev's gym, and I had been there that morning, but I wasn't there when he hurt himself. He was doing, I was going to say deadlifts. He was doing not even rack pulls. He was doing curl grip bent over rows with 400 and something pounds, and the bicep just went. And what happened to him was not what happened to me. His arm swelled up, and he had black and blue all over, and it was really grotesque. But he was a tough guy, and he ended up, and I'm being serious, he ended up winning the Olympia 5 months later, 4 months later, whatever it was, anyway, which is incredible in and of itself. So in that particular instance, that was an injury that was you use a lot of weight, there is always the chance that you are going to pop something, that you're going to injure yourself. But Dorian, when it came to benching, he didn't hurt himself benching. He was worried about tearing his pec. As many bodybuilders, it's not even a question of in the 90s. Today, you overstress the pec tendon, and the angle at which you have the highest probability of tearing your pec, because the tendon itself is most at risk, is regular flat bench presses. More so in this instance with a barbell than dumbbells, because of the angle and, the idea with the dumbbells that if you can't handle it, you're just not going to be able to bench it. It's more difficult to spot somebody if the weight's too heavy. But Dorian's thing was, he didn't do flat benches. He did it on a slight decline, like 5 to 10% decline bench. And he was not wrong when he said, you don't feel the same kind of stress on the pec tendon. I just don't think that I'm going to tear my pec doing the exercise this way, because the tendon is not getting hit at the same level. It's just not. So I don't do flat bench presses at the lowest level. I raise the bench. I think it's a 7 or 8 way adjustable bench that I have. I have it up one setting above flat. So it's about somewhere between 10 and 12%, I think, incline. And that's not because I'm worried about tearing my pec tendon. It's for if arguably a worse reason. I've had recurring issues with vertigo, more than recurring. It's a part of my life. I always have to be aware of my head positioning and not turning my head at certain angles, being very careful when I lean over to get something, not to turn my head at a certain angle. And what I have found is that if I simply, and not doing anything else, if I laid back on the bench, fully supine, not decline, the starting position for a bench, if I lay back and I hold my head steady, I will feel it. I will get a very slight sensation of spinning. Not a full-blown attack, but it's nature's way of telling me this is not for you. Don't do this. Because I can tell you this, and for 100% certain that laying back on a bench is not supposed to trigger any kind of dizzy spell, vertigo sensation. It's not supposed to do any of that. And I would say for the first 49 and a half years of my life, it did not do that. And then the last pretty serious vertigo attack that I had left me compromised. When I raise the bench just a little bit, nothing. I don't feel anything. It's that, just a slight difference in angle. So my bench press is somewhere between 10 and 12% incline. And I will also say, in a similar vein to what Dorian Yates, although he in that instance was talking to a different kind of audience, the pec tendon it's not at risk. Just that enough of that incline, enough of the movement to give me a bit of a vertigo spell if I try it, is also, the pec tendon doesn't seem as if you're hitting it directly. You're just hitting the muscle. You're hitting the front delt. You're hitting the lateral head of the tricep, little bit of medial, you're hitting what you're supposed to be hitting, and you're hitting the hell out of the pec muscles themselves. So my strength levels as far as the pressing exercises are equal to or have exceeded what I was doing before the injury. Hang on, I'm going to turn the engine on and turn the air on. Sorry, I tried to do it, just a window open and I'll be a tough guy. Not really. I don't need to be sitting in the car sweating. It's not like I'm getting any bonus points for doing that. But my strength levels, and there's ironies all over the place in life, we know this. But my strength levels on the pressing movements are now in excess of where they were before I incurred the injury. I'm probably about more than 10% stronger than I was before the injury. It was holding me back, and I had to be careful accordingly, knowing or unfortunately knowing what was probably going to happen. But there's another version of this where I don't get a flat tire that day. I don't get a flat tire at all. I had just done biceps 2 days earlier. I didn't feel anything weird. It didn't feel like, oh my God, it's going to go. No, It was just when I was doing benches. But I am stronger on pressing movements. As far as deadlifts, because I have the trap bar at home, which I think is terrific, and I've been doing them from the floor. When I moved into the new place, I have these mats, which are, they're pretty cool. You could do a lot of different things with the thick mats that I have. You can do weighted step-ups, higher or lower, depending on what kind of, how you want to do a leg workout without any specific leg equipment in your home gym, weighted step-ups, walking lunges, etc. Great movements. But I'd been using the mats, which are about, I guess they're 6-8 inches up. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if it's 6 or 8 inches off the ground, one of them. And I had been using one on each side, and that's how I was doing my deadlifts. So it would be the equivalent of doing deadlifts from the bottom pin if you were doing rack pull. So it's a deadlift, but it's not the same as doing them from the floor. So because I'm still a little cautious, and I can make jokes about why would I worry about injuring my arm now? I've already done it. In the movie Hellraiser 2, when the Ashley Lawrence character keeps hitting the button to try to go to hell, and Pinhead says, "You can't go to hell, my dear. We're already there." I can't tear my tendon deadlifting because the tendon is already gone. With that being said, the only movement where I feel any residual soreness is the deadlift. So I'm doing them now from the floor, and the extra 6 inches of movement, it makes the deadlift even more of a leg-centric exercise, certainly at the bottom to activate, to get the bar from the floor, to start, the pull, to hit the lower back, to hit the upper back. Now I still have the will. I still have the desire to put out as much effort as possible almost every workout. The thing is, I don't really like it. I enjoy when it's over. There are certain exercises where if you take away the risk of injury, I've always loved a great chest workout, a great shoulder workout. It'd be a stretch to say that I had fun doing heavy squats or heavy deadlifts. I don't know about that. Even if you could eliminate the risk of injury, that kind of all-encompassing pain, discomfort, I would not call that fun. But I'm not trying to injure something else. So I've been very careful, and the most weight, including the bar, which is 55 pounds, the most weight that I've used for deadlifts now off the floor, not with the mats, 135. That's the most that I've used. And the way you calculate, I have a 25 and a 15 on each side. So 80 plus 55, it's about 135. And sometimes I use straps, sometimes I don't. I don't really need straps when the weight is that light. I could hold 50, 50 reps for that. And that's what I did today. Nothing crazy, but moving the bar slowly through space, making sure that I get a good feel on the bar, and just try not to get hurt. And it sucks that every workout, anytime you try to put forth maximal effort, there is a chance you're going to get injured. And the way that I would look at it, 30 years ago when I was 21, there was a risk of injury. But most of the injuries I suffered then were accident type injuries. Dropping a 45-pound plate on my right big toe in February of 1996. That's a true story. That had nothing to do with attrition. That was an accident that shouldn't have happened. What was I doing? Shoulder press behind the neck with a barbell. The universe was telling me, don't do this exercise, it's dangerous. Even though it's not dangerous for that reason, it's dangerous because the shoulder girdle is put in a very disadvantageous position. The same way that they tell you now, don't do super heavy weighted pull downs to the front or the back of the neck, because that is an exercise that is incredibly easy to get hurt. Not necessarily a serious injury, but you don't need to get injured at all. So because I still feel soreness, and the workout when I was done today, again, no big deal, 135 for 50, big whoop, right? There was a time in my life I could have done 150 reps with that kind of weight. I never did that at Bev's, but I had stretches where I was deadlifting one plate, 135, and doing 200 reps. I was just doing crazy, sick shit That's safe though. That's safe. The weight isn't heavy enough for you to have a serious injury, I don't think. So I miss not being super focused on, boy, I hope I don't hurt this. But I don't have a choice. I have to be careful. I can no longer train like a daredevil as if I'm going to just be able to work out however I want forever. And the Disney documentary series, Limitless, that came out in the fall of 2022, the one with Chris Hemsworth, Thor, he gets into this because he was pushing 40 at the time that this was shot. I think he was born in 83, so he's 41, 42 now, I think. But he talks about, there's a lot of discussion of life extension. There's a lot of discussion of what can you do with your own workouts. Because obviously he's a guy without a trainer. The guy knew what he was doing. He built like a brick shithouse when he was in his 20s. He's got some good genetics. But what can he do to extend how far into his life he can continue to work out the way that he wants to without making too many age-related or injury-related adjustments? And as that's being discussed within a couple of the episodes, he suffers a really shitty injury where he fucks up his leg doing what amounted to a rock climbing drill. He messed up I think he hurt his Achilles. It was an injury that shouldn't have happened. That didn't really have anything to do with how old he was, but the fact that this was probably not a smart exercise, given that he was really only worried about how jacked he was going to look for Thor: Love and Thunder. I mean, that movie was fucking riot, and he looks incredible, but he didn't need to be doing the kind of test that he was doing to see if he could handle, can I do this, can I do that? There comes a point in time where, every head must bow, and you have to say, I'm never going to do this again. As a younger person, the idea that I'm never going to pull 500 pounds again, I'm never going to pull 400 pounds, I only pulled 500 a couple of times, just for reference. Didn't use straps for that. My grip was pretty solid back. And again, we're going back 15 to 20 years. That's probably a big part of the reason why orthopedically I began to go downhill faster than I otherwise might have, because as much as I did a lot of warming up and stretching, I don't think that was really a great idea. I would have been better off just doing what I was doing, which, hey, I can get 9, 10, 11 reps with 4 plates. I mean, that still can fucking kill you, but that was good enough. Didn't need to get cute and try and do singles and doubles and multiple sets where I was under extreme duress because the weight was so heavy. And, when the weight gets heavy, and heavy is relative, it doesn't take just a little bit off with the form, and you could have an injury where you're not necessarily in bed for 2 weeks, but where you won't be able to work out the way you want to for a couple of weeks, a month, maybe even 6 weeks. You just don't know. I am happy that at this point, all I have is a little bit of residual soreness, and the fact that, standing around certain ways, if I kind of bring my arm up, people can see, if they know what they're looking at, oh my God, this guy ripped his bicep. Oof, that looks like it hurts. Well, it doesn't really hurt now. It just looks a little weird, from certain angles. But I am back to doing all of the same exercises, not the same weights when it comes to, like I wouldn't be holding a 60-pound dumbbell in my right arm to do step-ups on the other side. I'm not up to that yet. But the 135 trap bar felt pretty good today. I was able to use a little bit more weight, a 33-pound dumbbell for dumbbell rows on the right side. So I'm not going to deliberately keep the weights down, but at the same time, I have to let pain be the guide. And I hope to reach a point where maybe I'll be using 70-pound dumbbells for dumbbell bench presses again. It's not that crazy because I was doing it, before the injury. And that's really the goal, because pre-COVID, and it doesn't seem like it was, but sometimes it seems like it was a lifetime ago, but when I was 45, I was still getting 20 plus reps with 70-pound dumbbells on the bench. And that was BEVs. The motivation, having all of those great people around, definitely would spur you to do things maybe you shouldn't have done. But again, if you can get 20 reps with a certain weight, it means you can handle it. Your form is probably pretty good, and you're probably not reckless. That's okay. So hope to slowly build up, look to get 25 or more reps the next time I really go all out with 55-pound dumbbells. And I can tell you that this week, when I did the trap bar deadlifts today, I didn't have the I had a lot of discomfort last week. Like the area was very, very sore, and I was nervous that maybe I had stretched something else out, but I didn't. I'm fine. I didn't really feel anything after, like within 2 or 3 minutes of the workout being over. I didn't really have any soreness in the right arm whatsoever. So the most important thing is to be able to show up, to be able to actually do the workouts that you want. And there are moments, and for all of us, because when I was in my early 20s, I wouldn't have wanted to hear of this. There are times where you have to take your foot off the accelerator. I attempted to take my foot off. Well, I did take my foot off the accelerator, but I hurt myself doing something else. Always be mindful. And if there is some weak point in your body, be aware of it all the time, not just when you're working out. Because if I had calculated, hey, I can also tear my fucking arm doing something where I have to use it and I have to leverage an area that is already damaged. I learned a hard lesson, but perhaps maybe you can learn from my particular experience here and not just be wary in the gym if you have a weak point or something where you think a tendon or ligament is in trouble. Just be cognizant, be mindful of the living force, young Padawan. Be aware at all times. Don't be afraid, but just be aware. If I had been wary that day, I would have probably gone another 6 months to a year before suffering that injury. But them's the breaks. I just got a little gap here, but the function of the muscle is back to normal. And I've been having really good workouts of late. Motivation never seems to lag. I'm very, very lucky. I'm very lucky in general. I don't need to qualify it with anything else. I'm just very, very lucky. So 13 weeks after right biceps tear, we're on the right track towards recovering as much as possible at our age, and given the limitations of what we can still do, we're not 21 anymore, it's 30 years later. This has been episode 577 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some of your Saturday afternoon here with me in New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Until then, peace.